Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today, we are looking at how Caseware interacts with Microsoft Excel. So we're going to be taking you through just an overview, really, of different ways that the two bits of software interact. If you need any more information on anything you see today, then please let us know and we can point you in the right direction. We are recording this session as well, so the recording will be available on the knowledge base and on our YouTube channel after the session or in the next couple of days. If we just jump to the next slide, just in case you weren't sure, my name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm one of the education and media technicians at Caseware UK, and I'm joined by Georgie Attfield, one of my fellow technicians. Hi, Georgie. Oh.
Hello.
We're actually sitting right next to each other, so I'm not really sure why we're communicating with each other remotely. We've also got our another one of our technicians, James Wright, who is very helpfully sitting in the background, monitoring your questions because we've got such a good turnout. So James is going to be helping out in the background and also running the slides, so I can do this hands-free. So if we jump to the next slide, we'll just recap some housekeeping. If you weren't aware or familiar with Zoom, you can use the Q&A option there to ask your questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. James will be monitoring those throughout the session, and we'll have a look and see how much time we have at the end, and all being well, we'll have a Q&A session then. You've also got the chat field there, so if we need to send you any messages, any prompts, or send over any links to anything, then that's where those will go. And if you wanted to ask your question live via your microphone, then you can use the raise hand option and we'll be notified. We can send you an unmute request and you can ask your question live. So as I say, we're recording as well, so the recording will be on the knowledge base on YouTube, and any questions will be added into a Q&A document, and that will be uploaded to the knowledge base as well. So we'll just jump ahead to the agenda. I'm not going to read through it line by line, but we're splitting it into two halves, really. So I'm going to take the first half and I'm going to show you how just an overview of the sort of thing you can do with Connector, which is an add-in that you can purchase if you haven't done so already. And then we're going to be having a look at how we can populate a custom cell in CaseView from an Excel document. And then I'll take you through the Cashflow workings document. So we've got a different way of populating that statement if you didn't want to use the workings that's built into the template. Then I'll hand over to Georgie. Georgie's going to look at various importing options over things like importing your TB right at the beginning of your engagement and adjusting entries. And as I say, we've got also we're looking at some corporation tax options there, and then a Q&A if we're okay for time at the end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So I'll just jump onto my screen so I can show you the first engagement file. Oh, that's the wrong one. So this is live. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to open up my Connector file. There we go. That's the one. So you should be able to see that now. And what we're going to do first of all is just show you a basic adding in a new Excel document for us to start using Connector. Now, if you're not familiar with Connector, this is an add-on tool, as I say, that you can purchase to add into your existing Caseware installation. If you haven't got it already, then you can speak to your account manager and we can look at getting that set up for you. But it is a way of getting Excel to talk to the data that is in your engagement file. So first of all, we need to make sure that the Excel document is in the engagement. So we need it to be in the document manager as opposed to it being sitting somewhere else, perhaps on your server or somewhere outside of the engagement. What we're going to do here is we're going to just create a new one in our other folder here. You can drag and drop. So if you've got an existing document that you wanted to tailor, then you can bring that in. But what we're going to do here is just right click and go to new and then Excel document. And we're just going to call this, when the dialog comes up, we're just going to give this a reference of Q1. We'll have a look at some sales figures. So we'll call it gross profit analysis. And we'll open up from within the document manager. So what we'll see here then is you'll have an add-ins tab at the top. And when you go to add-ins, you'll see there's a Caseware linkage, and this will confirm that it's for Caseware connector. So we can create a table. We can say we want to just look at some sales. We can go to the Caseware linkage.
See the Excel.
Oh, bear with me. I've just been prompted that you're not seeing the Excel there. Bear with me a moment. Thank you, Georgie. Apologies, everyone. We'll just try that again. So hopefully you can see the Excel now. We can see the Excel. Excellent. So we did actually rehearse this webinar, but these things do happen. Right, so I'm in my Excel, which I've opened from the document manager. And under my add-ins at the top, we've got Caseware Linkage. And I can go to Caseware Linkage, and that will bring up this dialog here, which you can resize. And what will happen now, because we've got it in the engagement, it's discovered all this data that's in the engagement. So you've got these categories down the left-hand side. We can see currently it's set to engagement properties, and we can pick the information from the engagement properties, such as our address. We've also got our accounts, so we can go to our nominal codes and our account descriptions. For this example, I'll go to mapping, and we can see here, this is picked up all of the map numbers in the engagement, including those with no values applied. And then we have this hopefully quite self-explanatory toolbar at the top. So default entity, well, that would be, this is not a consolidation or anything like that. So that's going to be set to default. We got it set to current year, but we could set it to a different period. The current format, that's the way that it would populate the figure. So we've got that set to default, but you can change the way that your figures are displayed. Also, this is set to reporting balance, but you can set it to, for example, a consolidated balance. You have various types of adjustments that you could filter it by as well, and so on. There's other options here which we can provide guidance on in more detail. We won't go into those in too much detail on this session, but let us know if you'd like some more detail, and we can provide those. You can even apply rounding. So if you had decimal figures and you wanted to apply rounding before populating this Excel document, then you can do so here. The option that I'm interested in for this exercise is this one right at the end. So your button for hide zero values. We'll select that, and then that will, as it suggests, get rid of all of the numbers that don't have any values in. So we've got a much shorter list to work with. Let's go down to our, we want to go down to our sales. So we want to go to we've got our different sales figures here. So what you'll see is, let's pick this one, is depending on what column you select, you'll see your calculation at the bottom and how it will display. This is in this little box here in the bottom right, how it will display in the cell. So let's say we want to bring in our domestic type 2. So that's how it's going to look in the cell. We'll select the tick, and then we can see that's come in behind in the cell that we've selected. So then we want to go along to the figure. So we'll select that. And then as you can see here, again, it's showing you the calculation. So that's showing you the map number that it's pulling that figure from and how it's going to appear in that cell. We'll select the tick there to bring that in. You have got some custom calculation options, much like custom calculations in CaseView. So if you wanted to bring in a figure that was a combination or a custom calculation, let's say we wanted to, I'll just move that over there for a sec, and let's say we wanted to bring in, say we've got that figure, that 9820, and then we wanted to add on another one. So in your calculation at the bottom, you select at the end of that after the bracket, and you can put in a minus or you can put in a plus depending on what calculation you want to do. It's then going to recognize that you want to combine it with another figure. So we'll select our other EU, and then that's now showing you the full calculation and the updated amount. So we select the tick, and then we can see that that's updated there. Now what you've done here is you created a live link between this document and the data in the file. So if that mapping changes, then providing it's correct and you save this Excel document when you update any calculations, then that's going to, and it stays in the document manager as well, then that's going to update automatically. I'm going to close this now. And what I'm going to do is actually bring in a completed example completed by a colleague. We've got this fixed asset lead schedule. So I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to plonk it underneath. And helpfully, it's called that Q2. So I don't need to change the reference on that. Now, if you open this outside of Caseware, so you just open it in Excel, then it will just be full of, it will be blank. There will be no data in there because it doesn't know where to apply those calculations. But because we've put it in the engagement, it's now refreshed. And you can see if I select on some of these figures at the top here, we've got our calculation for the map numbers, the various calculations that we need for it to populate. So that is live data based on what is in this engagement. And this wasn't created specifically for this engagement. This is a standard lead schedule document that's been created and it actually was for use with a different file, but I just popped it into this one. And because we've got the same type of data in here, it's been able to populate that on the fly. If we wanted to, let's say we wanted to do some referencing. So we've got our additions figure here. And let's say we wanted to do some referencing. What we could do is we could go back to our add-ins at the top. Now we have some other options up here, and there are some tick mark options, for example, so you can apply tick marks as you would do in your lead schedules. I'm not going to demonstrate that now, but if you need some more guidance, then please let us know. I'm sure James will be able to point you in the right direction in the Q&A. Now you've got this option here, which actually looks like it's an orientation button. So, but it's not changing it from portrait to landscape. It's actually a document reference option. So if we select that, we're going to go down to, let's say, our trial balance lead schedule. Select OK, and that's going to populate that N1.1 lead schedule in the Excel document. So we'll click on that. Predictably, it's going to open it. We also need to make sure that we save that so that it retains that reference. And then we've got our additions. Of course, I selected one that didn't have any value, but we've got our additions up here. And as you may be aware, you can right click your annotation column. We can go to document reference here, and we can reference back to the lead schedule that we were just looking at. So now we've got our Q2. And if you hover over that, it's going to tell you what it is. It's also going to tell you, give you a tooltip on who it was and when. And that will then reference back. So we've now got that two-way reference between the two. And of course, you can do as many of these as you like. So your referencing is the same principle as you would do in Caseware usually, but it's via your add-ins and Caseware linkage. Again, if you don't have this, there are, it may be that you don't have connector set up, but if you do have connector set up and it's still not there, then it's just a case of enabling it in your add-ins for Excel. And if you're not sure how to do that, then let us know and we'll give you the info. So I'm going to close that now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into the accounts. And I'm going to show you how to reference. So we're going in a different direction now. So I'm going to insert a custom cell. And then we're going to show you how to populate that CaseView cell with data from an Excel file. We use that fixed asset lead schedule document just for this exercise. Now, rookie mistake, of course, I haven't opened this accounts document before we started the webinar, so it's just recalculating some things. What this will require is for you to have access to enable editing. If you're not familiar with how to insert cells, I'm just going to show you in a moment a brief overview of how to insert a cell. We're not going to go into too much detail in terms of customizations, but we have got plenty of guidance. We've also got some past webinar recordings on how to insert cells and how to customize cells, but we're going to be focusing really on the calculation. So let's say, for example, we wanted to, let's go down to our tangible fixed assets. Accounting policy. Let's say we wanted to add in some text. So if you had put in our user text and we have got this text field just coming up at the bottom here, let's say we wanted to reference a cell. So enable editing, go up to view and then enable editing. It will ask you, it will probably ask you for a password. If you don't know what the password is, then you can speak to your the person responsible for your installation of Caseware and or your IT department. Failing that, you can speak to our support. And once you're in, you'll have your additional options. So you'll have your insert tab at the top, insert cell, and then it will ask you for a reference, and we use USX is a popular custom one to use because it's not used by Caseware anywhere else. Ignoring all these other customization options, excuse me, here, but we're going to go to this button here, which is the 3 dots, and that is for your calculation editor. And if we go to linkage, we've got this option here, which is CV Excel. That's CaseView Excel. And handily, you've got some guidance on the right, so which talks you through the whole process really, and it gives you example calculations. So for example, you can link to an external Excel document if you want to, so you can actually put in the path for the Excel document, and then you say what sheet the cell is on and what cell it is. What we would say about linking to an external document is, of course, you don't want to move it because it's using the path. So if you put the Excel document in the engagement, then you can reference it directly. So we've got our Q2, and we're going to reference that here. What I'm going to simply do here is copy that calculation, and I'm going to pop it in here. Now we know from earlier that our fixed asset lead schedule is Q2. Oh, it's Q2, and we're pretty sure that it's on sheet 1, but we can double check. Let's have a quick look, because I believe we've only got the one sheet in there. So yeah, we just got the one sheet, and there's no space between sheet and 1. So that's important to note, is that it will be looking at that formatting. So if we put sheet 1, no space, it's already started to populate. It looks like it's saying, oh, well, we've already got A1 in that example calculation, so it thinks it's that client cell, this one up here. But we're going to use this now. Let's pretend that there's no map number in there. We're not referring back to the previous exercise. Let's just say this is a fresh document that we've populated with figures that have been manually entered or entered outside of Caseware. So we've got our C10, 750,000. So we'll change that to C10, and then it's going to update, give you a preview here of what the result will be. So you know that when you select OK, that's going to work. Select OK again. And you've got your various editing options in terms of the size of the cell, the spacing, anything else that's in there, whether it's alphanumeric, that sort of thing. But as I say, for this exercise, we've just gone with inserting it with the default settings. And as with the demonstration earlier, this is a live link. So if you were to open and change the figure in that Excel document and then save it, it will update. So let's say I changed that. I'm going to mess this up now with the mapping, but let's say I changed it to 500,000 and then saved it and then closed it. And then it's recalculating, and everyone holds their breath because they want to see that it actually works. But we need to save CaseView. Close and save CaseView. Just waiting for it to recalculate and catch up with this. There we go. I'll open the accounts. And as I said, with the guidance that's in the calculation editor, you can link to an external document if you wish. You've also got other parameters that you can enter in. So for example, if the cell that you're referencing doesn't have a figure in it, then you could have like a holding figure. You could have something else that's in there, or you could say, just show 0, or you could have other variables. So you're always showing something in the cell. This is going to be down to me running so many things on my machine at once. So apologies for the delay in it calculating. We've got many things open, including Zoom, of course. So while it just recalculates, that should be popping up now. We'll go down to the tangible fixed assets, and it's updated to that 500,000. So that did work for you. So that's really the referencing CaseView cells, referencing figures that are from your data. So the last thing I would like to show you from my side is we're going to look at Cashflow. So we're going to look at the Cashflow Excel link option. And this is where, and this isn't anything to do with connector, this is a separate functionality. So you'll see, ignore that we've got the rounding errors at the top because we'll probably have some more a bit later on. In terms of your cash flow, your statement of cash flows that you would usually have based on the cash flow workings, which you open from the navigation menu up here, then you fill that in, and then that populates here. If you don't want to use that, you can actually download a Excel link template, which is on the knowledge base. And you can go to the knowledge base, type in cash flow Excel link, then be told that you were logged out. Cash flow Excel link. First result is a quick vid on how to use it. Second result is your download. So select download, and this will download an Excel document. If we open that, that's a blank one. And this is pre-populated with locked or protected cells, so you can't mess this up. But you just populate the different columns there for operating activities, investing activities, and financing, and then that will total up automatically at the bottom. And then we've got a current year and prior year summary tab. Once you've filled that in, it will look something like this one, which has been prepared earlier. We've got that for the current year and the prior year. So what you'll do when you have your download, or you have your prepared one as we have here, is you easiest way to do it is drag and drop it somewhere in your document manager, bearing in mind where you drop it, it will assign it with an identifier, as it has done for mine, a reference, because it thinks it's an account, something that's related to accounts. So what you need to do for it to work is you need to give it the reference, which is the same as the name. So that's cashflow-link, and then select OK. When you go back into your case view, it's just going to have a little think, because it's just seen that something's changed. So you can see in the bottom left there, it was executing script and recalculating. You've got this option here, which is statement of cash flows, Excel import, and you select the question mark. It will tell you here if you haven't got one in the file, or if it hasn't been named correctly, it will say that you need to do that. But if it's all correct, as it is here, you'll have the option here to use this functionality. Tick the box and select the icon to exit that dialog. It will recalculate, and what it's highlighting here, because actually that cash flow workings that we'd populated before is using some unrelated figures. So what it's highlighting is that they don't match the figures that are in, or it's cross-referencing against the figures that we've already got within the file, and it's saying they don't match. You need to check those. But it will populate in a similar way to the way that it would populate from the cash flow workings, but that again is driven from that cash flow Excel link. So if you update the figures in that document within the document manager and save it, the next time you open CaseView, it will refresh these figures here. If you decide you don't want to use it anymore, if you turn it on by mistake, you go back to the question mark, and then you untick the box and select the little arrow and box icon to close the dialog, and then it will refresh, and it will once again look at the figures that are in the cash flow workings built into the template that's up here under navigation. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to take you through. I think I've overrun slightly. Sorry, Georgie. But I am going to pass you over to Georgie now, and we're going to have a look at the next part of the presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Right, so the first thing I'm going to show you then is how Excel can be used within Corp Tax. So it may be that with your capital allowance additions, you have a fair few to enter. In this example today, I'm going to be bringing in 2, so not many, but if you were to populate an Excel, you can import up to 99 rows. So if you've already got it within an Excel, then it's really handy to be able to just sort of copy and paste it over. Okay, so I've gone into the capital allowances additions, and within the detailed transactions here, we've got the option to tick to enable to enter additions via an Excel spreadsheet. What I'll do is I'll just show you what I'm going to be importing prior or copying over. So if I just open that up, like I say, I've only got 2 additions today that I'm going to be bringing in, but I've got it in the 3-column format. So we've got our description of our asset, we've got the date, and specifically these have to be formatted as date cells, and then we've got number. So what I'm going to do is just minimize that because I'm going to need that back open in a second. Okay, so we need to click to enable editing and paste that spreadsheet in. So again, as I've just mentioned, it's a 3-column spreadsheet. So you've got your description, date acquired, which is formatted as dates, and then you've got the cost as well. What you need to do is just copy and paste that within these blue asterisks here. So let me just grab that and paste that in. And then once they've come in, you just need to make sure that you select the relevant pool. Obviously, that doesn't do it for you. We haven't brought in the relevant pool, so you have to select that from the drop down. So I'm going to click the button here to populate the CaseView additions table, and that will just close that section off. And what it will do as well is it will pop up with a little dialog box, just notifying me that we now need to select the relevant asset pools, pool allocation, which that's absolutely fine. So we can go ahead and select the relevant pools here. So with regards to obviously the pools, that is a manual process, but at least you've been able to get everything else in there quickly and promptly. Perfect. Okay, so that's just thinking about that. So that's what I wanted to show you with regards to obviously bringing in, using Excel within your corporation tax file. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to show you then is I'm going to head over to a file that I've just created this morning, RS Transport Limited. All I've done is create it. It's a brand new file, and I've just entered the operating name and the year-end date into the engagement properties. And I'm going to be showing you a trial balance import. Now, I understand that quite a few of you on today will have done this previously, but we may also have some newbies as well. So I'm just going to go through this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll show you how I've got that set up currently. So just got my trial balance here. So I've got my nominal code, I've got my account description, and then I've got my balances, current year, and prior year too. And then my TB balances down to 0. Perfect, so I'll close that off. Okay, so when we go into the trial balance, when you've created a new file, you will see that we've already got the Caseware standard TB within here. Now, if it is a case of you're using a trial balance with your own nominal codes, then you would need to strip this out and start from afresh. So in order to do that, if we go to Tools and Maintenance, what we can do is tick to remove all unused accounts. Perfect. So what we advise is then just to run through a repair file. In this case, you only need to tick the top option here and click OK. And I'm not going to take a backup at this point, just because, like I say, it's a new file. We haven't got anything in here at the moment, so we don't need to worry about backup. Perfect. Okay, so then we can go to engagement and import and Excel file. Okay, so the components to import, well, in this case, I'm importing a chart of accounts and general ledger balances, and I can just browse to that Excel. So that is sitting on my desktop currently. So select a worksheet. So within the Excel, if your trial balance was sitting on a worksheet other than worksheet 1, so if it was sitting on sheet 2, 3, etc., you can specify that at this point. The period date sequence, we do advise that you leave that as yearly. It may be that you are importing a TB that is more than 12 months. That's fine. It's within the engagement properties that you would specify sort of that longer or shorter period. So with regards to importing the TB, we ask that you keep that as yearly. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And at this point, it will ask me to exclude any rows from the Excel document that we don't need to import, such as header rows, total lines, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and exclude those. We just literally want those nominals, account descriptions, and those figures. Go ahead and click next. And at this point, we are going to header our columns. So this is where we can notify Caseware what column within the trial balance, you know, that this information needs to go to. So this one here is account number, and then we've got account description, and then we've got our balances as well. You have the option of opening balance or period 1. So I'm going to select period 1 in this example, and you'll see at the bottom here on field information, you can select whether it's just specifically debit items or credit items. So if you was importing a TB and you had those split into columns, then not a problem at all. You can specify that at this stage. But for myself, I've got a mixture of both sitting in there. Okay. So on this last screen then, we generally don't touch this too often, but I just want to highlight a couple of options on here that will be useful. So with regards to importing an Excel into Caseware, Caseware will only allow one version or one instance of a nominal number. So if you have got an Excel where you've got, say, for instance, your sales split out and they all have the same nominal, then what we would advise is in this option here, if you accumulate balances, it will amalgamate those balances under that one nominal and bring that in, because otherwise you're going to import that, going to end up with a trial balance that is a bit AWOL. It's not balancing down to 0 because it's sort of cancelled out those other nominals that you have within the Excel. The other thing to make you aware of is to clear balances of periods being imported. So if you've already gone through the import process, but then your client has sent you through a revised TB, or for any reason, you know, you've imported the wrong one, then what you can do is, rather than having to strip it out and start again, you can go through the import process. And if you tick this option here for clear balances of periods being imported, it will just overwrite what is there already. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. So it's just telling me that I've got new accounts being added here, which is correct. It's a blank TB and these are new nominal codes. Okay, so if I go ahead and finish, and that will bring in my trial balance. And then it would be a case of then going through the mapping process. So once you've got your TB in there, you can go to account, assign mapping numbers, and go through your mapping process. So you'd take a balance from the left, find the relevant map code on the right, and move it over. That is how Caseware knows what that figure is relating to. Perfect. Okay, so that's the trial balance import. What I want to show you finally is adjusting journal entry import. So again, if you've got an Excel that has all of your adjusting journals on it, then you can bring those into Caseware rather than having to manually enter those individually. So if I just show you what I've got here, so I've got an adjusting journals Excel. I've just got the 2 journals sitting on here today. So I've got a journal number, a journal description. I've got my nominal code, which are already within the Caseware file. I've got my debit and my credit. So I'll close that off. Okay, so if we go back to engagement and import and Excel file, within the drop down here, we can then select adjusting journal entries. We need to browse to it. And again, if you had the journals sitting on a different sheet in the Excel other than sheet 1, you can specify it at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. Similar to the import, so we need to go ahead and exclude any totals, any header rows, etc. Okay, so period type will be set as yearly because that is what the engagement properties is currently set at. Date is picking up my current year end date, but if you were importing, for instance, prior year adjustments, you can change the date here on the calendar. So type of adjustment I'm bringing in. So in this example, I'm bringing in a normal adjusting journal, but if you had reclassifying journals, or if you were within a consolidated file and bringing in your eliminating journals within this way, then you can specify via the drop down. So accounts then, for me, it will stay as financial because my journals that I'm importing have amounts, they have balances on them. If you wanted to specify mapping, for instance, then you can do. If you wanted to bring it in via mapping, that's not a problem, but I'll leave it as financial because I've got my nominals within there. Okay, and then we just want to go ahead at our columns. So for this one, then we've got entry number, we've got our description, got our account number, and then we've got our balance. So we need to specify the columns here. And click next. It's using the currency format and regional settings. That's absolutely fine. That's as it should. And then we can clear balances of previously imported adjusting entries. So again, if you had made an error, or if the client had sent through any journal entries that needed adjusting at all, then it can be done here. And also the accumulate as well. So there's no accounts that will be added or modified. So when you go through the import process, if the nominal within that journal entry didn't already exist in Caseware, that's not a problem. It would just tell you on this screen that that has been added, and then it would be a case of obviously going through and making sure that nominal gets mapped. Okay, so I'm going to go and import that. Once that import has imported, you'll see that they will populate the adjustments column. Okay, so I've got my journal entries sitting in there. And the other way to check or to sort of review what's been imported is your adjusting entries option here. And then we can see, so we've got our entry 1 that's being created by myself, it's been imported by myself, and we've got the description and the amounts, and likewise for journal 2 as well. Perfect. Okay, so I hope you found that helpful. As Tom's previously mentioned, for everything that's been covered today, you'll be able to find further guidance available on our knowledge base, or do feel free to sort of pop a question in and we can come back to you. That's fine. So I'm going to hand back over to Tom.
Thanks, Georgie. So if we could just jump back to the slides, I'll just ask James to just pop those back on the screen. Thank you very much. Very slick. So as Georgie said, questions. You can still you've still got a chance to pop your questions in the question field as we go through the wrap up, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Don't be shy. And we've, as Georgie said, lots of resources on everything you've seen today, bearing in mind we tried to squeeze in quite a lot of content in 45 minutes. So there is a lot more detail on everything that you've seen. So if you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask. You can pop it in the question field there. You can also get in touch with us through the usual channels. You can email us. You can find lots of resources online, which we'll point to in a couple of slides time. So if we jump to the next slide, what we're going to do now is just give you a quick glimpse at some of the upcoming sessions. So on the events page, that's caseware.co.uk/events, you'll see our webinar schedule. We are scheduling quite far in advance now, so this isn't all of them. This is being updated all the time, but you'll be able to see these, all the agendas there, and you'll be able to register to attend as you have done for today. We're going right up to December here, but there are more that will be added very shortly going into next year. If we jump to the next slide, just to give you just a reminder of how to find the events page if you are already on the website looking at something else. If you go to resources at the top, and then it's the second option down, that's for events. And in terms of our recordings of our webinars, the next slide will show you that we've got our, just a reminder of a YouTube channel. So that's Client Services Caseware UK Limited. We've got lots and lots of quick vids, lots of playlists on there for quick vids, but we also have a webinar playlist if you weren't aware. All of our recordings, including the recording of this one, will go on there. So this will be on there in the next couple of days. And you've also got our LinkedIn page, which is, again, Client Services Caseware UK Limited. And that is for all the latest news in the business. And we also give you information of upcoming sessions. So if you follow us there, you'll be kept up to date. We'll give you a nudge when there's another session coming up. And finally, I think it's finally on the next one, we've got just a reminder again, kb.caseware.co.uk, and that is for all of our recordings. We've got articles there, and you've also got lots of other guidance. I'm not sure if we got a question that's come in. Just have a quick look there. I think we've got a question come in, which is, can Connector link one spreadsheet to data from multiple entities? So you have got options within Connector for consolidations. And I know we only really briefly mentioned them today, so there's lots more detail that we can give you on that. So thank you for the question. What we'll do is we will get back to you directly after the session with some guidance. And you can also give us a bit more detail on what it is you're looking to achieve. Thank you for the question. You can continue to submit your questions, and we've also got a survey afterwards. We very much appreciate you completing that, and that will include another opportunity for you to pop any questions in there and give us some ideas of what you'd like to see on future sessions. So yes, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you found it useful and you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for the recording and any additional information. And we hope to see you on the next webinar. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.